I think that's the. Let me see. Is there any more to that? No. So what is the next? What is that one? Oh yes. In this way, we are all priests, as many of us as are Christians. There are indeed priests whom we call ministers. They are chosen from among us, and who do everything in our name. That is a priesthood which is nothing else than a ministry. Thus, 1 Corinthians 4, no one should regard us as anything else other than ministers of Christ and dispensers of the mystery of God. This is a super, super important quote, and I'll help try to make sense of it, at least as I needed to have it made sense for me. What Luther is saying here is, he's not abolishing the priesthood of the church. He felt that was very, very important for church order, right? Somebody needs to distribute, preach the word and distribute the sacraments, right? And the people that do that are priests of the church, right? And let me see if I can say this the right way. Therefore, they shouldn't be eliminated. What's interesting, in Luther's time, he kind of lived in a tension. He had this argument with the Catholic Church about, what is the difference between a priest, how should we define somebody as a priest? But then he also had another side of it. There was this group that came along in his lifetime called Anabaptists, right? And if you trace the history, that's who Baptists are these days, for example. But there are many other offshoots of that who believe that the whole professional clergy class should be eliminated, right? And Luther didn't take either one. He took it in the middle. He went in the middle, and he said priests, who we call pastors now in the Lutheran Church, need to be there for church order, but they're not any more spiritual than anybody else. The reason they're set apart or ordained is because they have this job to be ministers of word and sacrament, which is how we pastors understand ourselves in our church today. Which, if you go to see an ordination, which is a beautiful service, we had one relatively recent when Jennifer Shaw was baptized. The whole order of service is all about handing over, ordaining, laying hands on, and praying for a person so that they can become a minister of word and sacrament. Does that make sense? But that doesn't make us any more spiritually higher. We don't have that red phone in our office. You know that red phone that's a direct line to God, right? The people who have, sorry to let you out there, people who have grown up in Catholic churches have a harder time, in my experience pastorally, understanding this nuance, this theological nuance. We'll keep going with this. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say about that. No, I think that's it. Any need for clarification on this? Yes, Eric.
You said priests, and now you're a pastor. Is pastor a Lutheran thing, or is a priest is a Catholic thing? I mean, a name for what you're doing.
That's great.
You're a priest, or are you a pastor?
I'm a pastor in the Lutheran tradition.
Why?
In the Lutheran tradition, we got away from using that term because it was as I understand it, a confusing term. It was we eliminated using it because it confused people about what our role is. Yes.
Isn't a pastor more also shepherd the flock? You
Yes.
feel more of a shepherd than a...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there were if you read that ordination service, we have a priestly role, we have a pastoral role, and we also have there's a third office, and this Calvin was big on, a prophetic role, right? So that kind of, in the preaching of the word and the administration of the sacraments, they're all kind of rolled up into what it means to be a pastor.
But you're also a minister.
Yeah, yeah. a minister is a general word for all of those. So
Okay.
I mean, in 2,000 years of church history, there have been so many ways to use all of these words, and they've all developed. I resonate personally with the word pastor, right? That just feels in my bones what I'm called to do and to be. But that also sums up in those roles the idea that I'm also prophetic. I have to speak a prophetic word, which is the hard. It can be a very difficult thing to do because prophets were not always appreciated about what they said. But it's kind of a combination. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, we can talk more about it. Let me try to get through some more of this information. Here's where this idea of the priesthood of all believers and its implications. What Luther wanted to do with this, when he would boldly say it, is empower people, right? This is the role we're called to play. Even if you're not a minister of word and sacrament, you're a minister in some way, shape, or form. You are called by God to play that role of priest to the nations. I think where this gets more worked out in Luther's theology is in a more general concept of vocation. Vocation comes from the Latin word vocare, and it means calling. And for Luther, calling was so incredibly important. Essentially, to be a vocation was what every Christian did between the time that they were baptized and the time that Jesus came again. Now, there's every indication that Luther was what's called a radical apocalyptic, that he believed that Jesus would come at some point in his lifetime, just like Paul. There's speculation as to that's why Luther was able to get so much done, right? He was urgent, right? I got to get this stuff done before Jesus comes again, right? There was he operated with a sense of urgency, or at least that's kind of how I picked up in some of his writings. So vocation is what we do as a people between the time we're baptized and the time Jesus comes again, and we're not all called to do the same thing, right? And how do we know that? Well, Luther would refer to what Paul wrote as the body of Christ. He loved that image that Paul, a couple of times in his New Testament writings, we're all different. We have one head, and that's our high priest, Jesus, and he's the only one that can save us. But then we're all given different gifts of ministry, and we're all called to work together to be that priesthood of all believers. So, there's so much to say about this, but this is kind of fun. His sermon, now his preaching, I would have loved to be there while Luther preached, because I think he was kind of he liked to provoke people and use strong language. And 500 years later, it doesn't seem so provocative, but this is a sermon. I hope, well, maybe it does. You tell me. This is an excerpt from his sermon called "The Estate of Marriage." He's talking about marriage, right? So, now observe. I'm going to try to read this, but it's another guy's sermon. So, now observe that when that clever harlot, our natural reason, which pagans followed in trying to be most clever, right? You can feel he's just kind of, I don't know, he's just peeing crunchy. I don't know what the right word is. That clever harlot, our natural reason, right? He didn't have a high view of that the human. He believed that we really wrestle with our sinner, right? So takes a look at married life. She turns up her nose. This is the harlot. Turns up her nose and says, "Alas, Must I rock the baby, wash its diapers, make its bed, smell its stench, stay up nights with it, take care of it when it cries, heal its rashes and sores, and on top of that, care for my wife, provide for her, labor at my trade, take care of this and take care of that, do this and do that, endure this and endure that, and whatever else of bitterness and drudgery married life involves? What? Should I make such a prisoner of myself? Oh, you poor wretched fellow, have you taken a wife? Fie, fie upon such wretchedness and bitterness. I gotta use that term more often, fie, fie, right? Fie, fie upon such wretchedness and bitterness. It's better to remain free and lead a peaceful, carefree life. I will become a priest or a nun and compel my children to do likewise. Yeah, he's taking a swipe, right? Come on, people, right? What then does Christian faith say to this? It opens its eyes, looks upon all of these insignificant, distasteful, and despised duties in the Spirit. It is aware that they are all adorned with divine approval, as with the costliest of gold and jewels. It says, O God, because I am certain that Thou hast created me as a man, and hast from my body begotten this child, I also know for certainty that it meets with Thy perfect pleasure. I confess to Thee that I am not worthy to rock the little babe or wash its diapers, or to be entrusted with the care of the child and its mother. How is it that I, without any merit, have come to this distinction of being certain that I am serving Thy creature and Thy most precious will? Oh, how gladly will I do so, though the duties should be even more significant and insignificant and despised. Neither frost nor heat, neither drudgery nor labor will distress and dissuade me, for I am certain that it is pleasing in Thy sight. And then he has one last. A wife too should regard her duties in the same light, as she suckles the child, rocks and bathes it, and cares for it in other ways, and as she busies herself with other duties and renders help and obedience to her husband. These are truly golden and noble works. Now here's where he gets even more crunchy. Now you tell me, when a father goes ahead and washes diapers or performs some other mean task for his child, and someone ridicules him as an effeminate fool, though that father is acting in the spirit just described and in Christian faith, my dear fellow, you tell me which of the two is most keenly ridiculing the other. God, with all of his angels and creatures, is smiling, not because that father is washing diapers, but because he is doing so in Christian faith.